So now I've got the outline of the line on my paper. What I want to start by doing is using a light grey, and I've got a luminance steel grey here. So as you can see, I want to start just carefully marking in the outlines around the eyes and any other little features, just to put the markings in so I don't lose them once I start washing in some of the other colours. And also it's very easy when you've traced the outline onto your paper to perhaps have things that aren't quite as you thought, so it's worth just double checking your proportions and angles just to make sure you've got them right in the first place. So what I'm going to do, because of my pencil outline, while obviously you try and be gentle putting it on and make it very pale, you still can be a little bit dark. So I've got a kneadable eraser or a bit of putty rubber or a bit of blue tack, and just gently lift a little bit of the pencil where you want to work, just so you can see it very faintly. And then I've got my steel grey here, and using my reference picture, I'm just going to gently mark in the outline. Around the outline of the eye here, coming down into this grey marking under the eye, just to make sure we've got the angles right on that, and that we're happy with where it is. It also will help us not to accidentally lose it. Now in this area here, some of this is grey marking, so I'm just going to gently lift that off, and keep checking back with your reference photo, make sure you have got it down correctly. But I'm using very light pressure. I'm literally using a pressure one. It's just so we've got some of our key points. Now here I know that I've got there's a grey scar marking just here, so I'm going to just mark that in. It's good to have these little points of reference to help plot everything out. Okay, and then I'm just going to repeat the same for the other eye. Again, just very gently lifting some of those lines that you're going to be working over. So the eye, again, check your reference photo, make sure that you are drawing in the right lines. Just, it's not so much drawing, just gently sort of sketching them in using a very light pressure. So I've just plotted in the eyes, and then I'm just going to do the same, lightly sketching around the outline of the nose. Again, check your reference photo just in case you've gone a little bit askew when you've been lying down your outline. It's easy to become slightly off. and just the top of the mouth here. Oops, that line's a little dark, so I'm just going to lift a little bit of that off. I'm not worried about filling in these darker areas yet. This is simply a slight plotting exercise just so we don't lose some of those key features as we're working. The other thing I want to mark in before I start washing in the pale creams and yellowy ochre colours is the whiskers. Now for the whiskers, what I want to do is to use a white. Okay, what I want to do next is some of these bright white whiskers here. I just want to mark them in to try and keep the paper nice and clean. So I'm going to use a pretty hard pressure. So I'm just going to dab out anywhere that I'm going to obviously be drawing. I'm not going to go directly over the top of the pencil, I'm just going to go next to it. So I've got a white whisker here, so I'm going to start where it grows out, and then that leaves me with a sharper point at the end, so to help embed it. So hard pressure, and then I'm going to, okay, and it might almost indent the paper a little bit, and that's okay. Always look where you want them to actually grow out. Make sure they're growing out in the right places. You obviously want to press fairly hard so that when you're laying the other colours on, it doesn't go over the top, and also makes it easier for you to actually see where you've put them. Remember, while we're obviously using a photo for a reference, this is a drawing, so we're allowed to use artistic license to make our picture the best it can be. So if you've put in your whiskers and they're not exactly in the same place as the photo, then you don't need to worry. Okay, so I've marked in some of the main whiskers here, and then on the right hand side there are just a couple coming out here, so I'm just going to mark those few in just here. They're obviously not as long, they're not sticking out as much. Some of them are right from the edge, and some of there's a couple that are growing from within the face here. Okay, so I've marked those in. I've plotted in roughly, just gently with where the eyes and nose are. So what I want to do now is, obviously I've got pencil lines on the face to depict where some of the darker areas may be, and obviously I don't want to end up losing those completely. So what I want to do is, using not too dark a colour but a little darker, I want to just see. So I'm going to check my colours, and I think I might try an olive brown 10% luminance pencil, and obviously these aren't actual hard lines on the line that we've got on here, it's just a guide where it changes tone to give you the form of the face. So while I don't want to completely lose them, I'm just going to dab them away a little bit, and then with my olive brown 10% I'm going to stroke very, very gently a little bit of hair on, just to help me remember where some of the particularly dark tones are. There's a very dark tone near his eye, so I'm just gonna, when I'm putting hair on, always stroke in the direction that the hair is actually growing. Like I said, we're not drawing in hard lines, we're literally just stroking in very lightly, just to help us remember where some of these darker tones are within the face, without going too dark straight off. It's literally just more of a helping us, give us a guideline. And again, I'm not doing it all, I'm not completely covering the paper, I'm simply just marking in where some of the key ones are, just to help remind us as we build up the layers of colour. So there's another bit above this eye. Again, keep checking your reference photo. Don't rely solely on the outline that you've drawn for yourself, because it might be inaccurate. Okay. And then there's some down the nose. Just like I said, it is literally, I'm literally stroking the hair on. Just to plot in some of the dark tones so we don't forget where they are on the face. Each time I'm literally just dabbing away the bit of pencil before I add in the coloured pencil, because I obviously don't want the pencil to show through. I'm literally just putting this in some of the darkest places where I just need to remind myself before I wash in the cream where the key dark markings are. So I've got like an outline on this cheek. I obviously don't want to keep that there. And it's just a rough guide. So I'm literally just gonna stroke in just little bits here because it's not a solid colour. And that's a darker bit there. It's that dark patch there. It is simply just a guide. Now around here you can see we've got quite defined between the spots on the face here. Again, keep checking your picture. It's very easy to lose your way. Now around here I can see where his mouth is. Now as I've put these white bits in, I'm actually going to go back with my steel grey and just make sure I've got this area mapped in on this dark patch. just very lightly. Again, it's just to help us not lose our way. Okay. Now I can see that I'm missing an outline here of like the edge. So I'm not drawing a straight line, I'm literally just stroking on the darker side, not on the face, but on the bit of hair growing out of it that's darker than the face, just to plot in the outline of with the hair growth, just so I don't lose my way. Okay. I'm not going to worry too much about the bits around this area at the moment. I'm going to focus more on this part of the face. So it's a darker patch there. So while there are lighter hairs showing through, I'm not going to fill in the whole bit. Just think of it as creating a road map. Okay, and I don't really want the edge of the pencil mark there, and obviously it's darker in the main, so I'm literally just going to sketch in with some light strokes where the edge of the face hair is as it grows into. Be careful not to fill it all in, because obviously there are lighter hairs growing in that area. I am literally just very gently marking them in. Okay, so that's given me a little bit of a road map for working this area particularly. So now what I want to do is build up the layers, starting with the lightest colour. So for that, I want to start by using a Prismacolor cream pencil, and I literally want to start by doing the lightest wash possible. So using a pressure one, I'm going to give it a wash, but all the time I'm going to be constantly thinking about the direction of hair growth. So as I'm washing it in, while I'm using backwards and forward strokes very gently, I'm also going over the darker areas that I've just filled in. I'm using a very light pressure, you probably barely even see it. I'm literally just creating a base coat. The only places obviously I won't be putting this colour on the face is under the eyes. There are two very light, almost white cream patches, so I won't be putting it there, and I won't be putting any in the eyes or the nose itself. So but fill it everywhere else, just don't fill in those places. As you can see, you can barely see. Each time I'm moving my pencil around though to think about the growth of the hair, and I'm using the lightest pressure possible, and I'm going over the top of where I put the olive with brown. So keep moving your pencil direction around to look at the hair growth on the lion's face, because it keeps changing direction. On the nose there's also some very light patches, so make sure you have got that super light pressure. Be careful to leave, there's a few really light patches there, just be careful to leave some of those as well. around here it's quite white and grey, not so much cream, so I'm not going to worry about filling in that bit either. Thing with coloured pencils, it is literally all about building really light layers of colour to get to your final product. It's not something you can rush. There is no quick fix to it if you want to do it with just pencils. Obviously some people use other mediums with it, which is absolutely fine, but for the purpose of this exercise it is pure colour pencils, so you need a lot of patience and a light hand. Now in this bit here in his muzzle, again this bit here, that's white, quite white. Obviously it's not pure white, but it's not so much creamy, so we're going to make sure we leave that bit. Okay. And the same on the other side. Just be careful around this bit here. Obviously leave that bit out for now, and this bit here is quite white. So okay, so we've used, that was the Prismacolor cream. Now what we want to do is continue to build up his face. Some of the areas we will leave the cream colour, so we want to move up to our next colour. This is where it's useful to have your colour chart on the side, where you've put your colours that you might be using, and then you can have a look and see what shade you think would work well next. Now for me, I would quite like to have a go at using the brown ochre 10% luminance. Again, I want to make sure my pencil's fairly sharp. The reason being is I want to try and fill in some of the tooth of the paper in the early stages so that so much white won't show through. Again, you need to make sure you're using a light hand though, because if you press too hard you will obliterate the tooth of the paper, making it difficult to put on subsequent layers. So I've got brown ochre 10% luminance. Again, it's all about looking at the reference photo. So this bit here keeps drawing my eye around here, and I'm going to just, again, using a 1 to 2 pressure, going to stroke on bits of hair. Again, I'm not going to cover the whole lot. I'm going to leave out some of the lightest shades, so that some of the cream will peer through in places. Some bits I will stroke and lift, some bits I will shade back and forwards as it were, but all the time using a very light pressure. Having marked in where some of these darker bits are at the beginning, it helps us to plot our way around his face to get on the rest of the markings, hair directional growth, things like that. These are literally just lying down the underlayers of colour, building our roadmap. Keep checking back on your reference photo, making sure though that you've got the hair direction going in the right place, you've got your proportions looking fairly accurate. What I find I often do is, when I'm using coloured pencils, is that I I don't like to work on the whole piece in one go. I will select an area, I will put down some of the initial underwash layers, and then perhaps I might work up little tiny sort of inch square patches to being more of a finished level. I don't like to lie down a wash on all of it and build it all up at the same time. There will be some areas that I will work up to near completion, and then work on other areas. Now on the nose, if you have a look, there are lots of lighter patches, there are some grey patches, and you can see the individual hairs a little more clearly here than perhaps in some of the other areas, because it's not as thick hair, it's a lot thinner and lies a lot flatter. Again, here the hairs are longer on, starting to get a bit longer on the cheek here, so you'll use longer strokes. Still remember you're using a light pressure 1 to 2. Keep checking those proportions, make sure that you've got them where you want them. Now around these white whiskers we drew, and you can see because we've indented slightly, it helps just to try and keep them a little bit cleaner when we go back over them later. You can start to work around them. Okay, as you can see, you can start to see the face is just beginning to start taking shape. You can see some areas you'll see more individual lines to depict the hairs, some will be more shaded in together. That's good because that's going to give us a bit of variety and contrast. If you have the whole face so you can see every single hair, it will end up looking boring and your eye won't know which bit to look at. So some bits you will be able to see individual hairs a little bit more clearly, others the hairs will be clumped together, and that's absolutely fine. That helps to create an overall cohesiveness to the picture. Okay, so what I want to do now is some of these particularly darker patches. I just want to go and mark some of those in a little bit more strongly, and for that I'm going to use a goldenrod, a Prismacolor goldenrod. Again, constantly using light pressure in these early stages, so check your reference photo. I am literally using the light pressure. I'm marking in a few of these, particularly they're starting to get darker. Again, always go in the direction of the hair. Okay. out. The line obviously isn't particularly orange. When you use this lightly and then add in the other colours, it obviously just creates a bit more vibrancy to the picture. This is one colour that I particularly like and tend to get through quite a lot of. You'll find with your drawing, if you end up drawing a lot of the same kind of animals, like I draw a lot of big cats, you end up having a selection of pencils that you'll end up using in every picture virtually, and you'll get through those particular colours quite quickly. Where you don't want to show individual hairs so much and just clumps of hairs, it's more of a little gentle wash, but always staying in the direction of the hair growth. Whereas where you want to show, like here, you can see quite a lot of the light hair. You literally are just stroking a few little bits in to help the lighter areas stand out more, and the individual hairs, they'll be further apart as you stroke them on, help those lighter colours show through. Quite a dark patch just there. You'll find when you're building up layers of colour, just because you've used one colour once doesn't mean that you won't add it again. Some of these colours will be kept being added until we reach a level where we're happy with the amount of depth that we've created in the picture. Again, obviously I said I was working on the face, and as we said, to the side of the face where the mane is actually darker, so for the purposes of helping this to stand out, I've just started marking in the dark outline to the left of the face, just to help it stand out so I can see where I'm working on it. And it's a little bit above the mouth area here, there's a darker patch of orangey brown here, so just stroke a little bit of that in there. A few hairs. Okay. Now, it is literally a question of building up those layers, really. What I want to do next is in the nose, this bit here. If you look really carefully, obviously I can see some grey markings, but the grey is also quite pinky in his nose. It's like a pinky grey. So for that, oops, dropped my pencil. I'm going to add a little bit of two of my favourite luminance colours that I do use quite a lot of. As you can tell by my short pencils, the first one is a burnt Sienna 10%, and the second one is a violet grey. So making sure that I've got a sharp point. You'll find you'll need to sharpen your pencils quite a lot throughout this process. So I'm just going to make sure they're both nice and sharp before I start. Okay, I'm going to begin with the more pinky of the two, the burnt sienna 10%. And I'm going to look really carefully here, and it's not complete solid colours, it's quite patchy on his nose. So I'm going to just, again, light pressure, I'm going to just stroke on a few, and obviously I don't want to go too pink, it's just I want to create more depth, which you can do by mixing colours together on your paper, by layering them. So just keep checking back the markings. Some are obviously more prominent than others. Sometimes it is literally just trying a colour out when you're layering them to see if it creates the effect that you want it to. This pink I'm actually going to add a little bit of in places on the face, bring a bit of warmth to it. Not too much, because obviously I don't want to make him too pink, but if you just look in places, there are a few patches that are more of a pinky, yellowy ochre. This side of the face, round here, there's also, I can see some, definitely see some pink within the tones. Don't forget to leave some of the cream showing through though, because it is not a solid colour. Bring some of it into this bit round here as well. Again, this bit is quite patchy almost. Longer hairs here, so it means longer strokes with your pencil. Remember to keep those lightest colours, not go over those. Some of the as you're building your layers, obviously you're not going to just keep going over the same bits. Some layers you might cover most of it, other layers you might obviously just do bits of it. That's what creates the variation in colour, not having a uniform, right, I've coloured this bit here and must lay it exactly over the top. That's not how you create all these lovely colours and tones and the depth to the picture. So you've got a part down here on the side of his face that's quite pinky purple. So I definitely want to add a bit of pink in here. Again, might be using light pressure. If you want to obviously make it come a little bit darker, just go over it a few times to create it more pink rather than one heavy layer. That's quite pinky, that bit there over his eye. Okay, now let's have a look down this bit. I'm going to add some on this side of his face here, just to help bring it all together. As you can see, once you start building up these tones here, the white will start to stand out a bit more of what you drew in. So now it makes it a little bit easier to see, to go around the lines that you previously drew in. Add a few touches around his muzzle, but not too much because it's quite light here. Just sort of at the bottom bits here you can see the different lines. This side hasn't got too much pink in it. So again, I can see here by looking, my nose, I've put finishing there and that there. On the picture they're close together, so I need to work out whether I've gone too wide here or whether I've not made my nose wide enough. Now to do that I can use a landmark. So if I think about drawing a line up from where I've done the edge of, finished the edge of 9/0, see where it finishes on the eye, so in the middle of the eye, and then check on your reference picture, do the same thing, lay your pencil on it. Now my pencil lying it down tells me this should finish closer to the end of here, so if I put my pencil there I can see that my nose isn't quite long enough, so I'm just going to get out my steel grey again and just make it slightly longer that way. Again, look at your reference picture, it's just not quite long enough, so it's that makes the proportion a little bit better there. Okay, good to keep checking. Now it's much easier to sort in these earlier stages than when you've got heavy layers down. Okay, right, so I'm now going to use a violet grey luminance pencil, and I'm going to just look at my reference photo, and you will see that within the face there are some more purple areas of hair, particularly around this kind of area here, down his cheekbone here, and the same on the other side, and there's also some within that patch in his nose and a few other bits around there. So I'm going to start by, again, I'm using just a pressure 1-2, and I'm stroking, a combination of washing and stroking on the pencil, but always in the direction of the hair. So this patch here, some of that's in shadow. And here they've got that dark marking down his face. It's not a straight line, so stroking some hair coming out of that. This lovely, this is one of my favourite colours actually. I do use a lot of this colour. What I like about it is it's not just a grey. I really like the purpley tone of it. It's not too bright, but it just adds a little something, and it particularly goes well with these sort of yellowy oranges colours, because it just gives that contrast. Yeah, sorry, being a complementary colour, it works well to create some of the more shadowed areas in the face and between the hairs. As you see, in some bits I'm literally just stroking on just a few hairs, and in others I'm just doing a loose wash. Again, this bit here, just under his mane, it's not solid dark areas here. You can really see some of the lighter hairs standing out. So yeah, individually just stroking on some loose lines here. This dark bit under the eye. It's very tempting to go straight in and press hard, but just use a pressure 1, 2 and just go over it a few times. At this stage it's much better to do that to keep the tooth of your paper. I'm also going to just loosely go over some of these grey markings that we popped in earlier, just to start building those up. Take your time doing this, don't rush, keep checking back on your reference photo to see exactly where those areas are that we want to add the purple, because you won't want it everywhere. You won't want it in the lighter highlighted sections. The other thing is as well, obviously we want to keep a fairly sharp pencil, you'll find that the side you're using on your pencil will start going a bit blunt. So just keep turning it around gently in your hand. It helps keep more of a point. Got a dark, shadowed bit there, so I'm just going to loosely wash it in so we know where it is. You can always check your photo. Zip in slightly there. Now, obviously, this is generally a lighter bit here, but to create the depth of hair, you will still need to add some other colours just to make the lighter hairs actually stand out and look a bit more hair-like. So this is quite a nice soft colour to just add a few lines in. Obviously not all of it, because we want the hair to stand out in that bit, but then as it kind of comes down here, it is starting to get a little bit more in shadow. And then working over the nose area. Again, when we worked on this area a minute ago, it's kind of quite patchy because it's quite thin hair here on his nose, rather than here where it's starting to get thicker. So remember, it's got short lines for the shorter hair. Again, I'm checking hair direction on my photo. And there's like a few markings where he's obviously had the odd scrape. And then obviously it got a darker area here, so it's okay to keep building that up. This is more of a washed in area here, because this is obviously slightly further away and it's not going to be the focus of our picture, so we don't have so many individual hairs. Like here you can see the individual hairs standing out a little bit more here, and that's kind of where our eyes then drawn to this section of his face, whereas this bit then is pushed back slightly because we're not focusing on the individual hairs so much. To this section, I'm just going to add a tiny bit, just where the follicles are, just to show where they are. And just by the side of the nose here, just a tiny little bit. Very, very lightly. There we go. And what I'm going to do now is add in some warm grey, that's a one of the new Derwent Lightfast pencils. Again, looking in some of those mid-tone areas, leave the lightest areas light at the moment. So I can still go over some of the darker areas that I've done. This is quite a nice colour because, well, we've just had the violet grey that was more of a cool colour. This is more of a, obviously it's warm grey. It is warmer and there is more of a yellow brown hue to it, which works quite nicely on the line's face. So again, I shall start at the top and work my way down. This pressure 1, 2, just washing some of the mid-tones and darker tones in. Leave the lightest areas. By washing some of this hair here, we can then just push it back so it's you can't see all the individual hairs. Save those, like I said, just for a few key areas. This is really just to help start building up some of the depth within the face. See here, there's some very lightly, you can just see some little lines within the fur there. You'll see as you start adding more and more light layers, obviously it starts to take more shape and create more of a 3D effect to the lion. I always say this is when the magic starts to happen, as you get a little bit further through and the layers start taking shape. Again, we don't need so much in this area, just a few bits and just a bit round the mouth, mouth muzzle area there. A little bit above it as well, just when you doing a gentle wash like this, it kind of brings together the colours underneath almost. It's like it's blending them. Again, the nose, using just short strokes with my washers. Remember to keep checking your reference photo if you're not sure of any of the areas, just making sure obviously that you got the proportions right as we go along. in. I'm just going to put a little bit of this in the muzzle just to help it start to take a bit of shape, because they're rounded, so kind of going around in the direction that it would be growing, so rather than just going straight lines, I'm doing nice curved lines here to just give it that bit more form. The same on this side. Careful around here because obviously some of this is more of a bluey white grey, so we'll leave those patches. Okay, just check that we've got everything that we're happy with. We'll just add a little bit more here and in this bit here. Like we said, some of the colours that we've already previously used we will be coming back to shortly to continue building the layers up. Okay.